Running a service business means juggling contracts, invoicing, and client communication. It can get overwhelming pretty quickly. That's where platforms like Dubsado step in. Dubsado is pitched as a business management system built for freelancers and small agencies. It brings your clients into one place: proposals, contracts, invoicing, scheduling, and even automated workflows so that you can spend less time on admin and more time with clients. In this video, we're going to break down Dubsado's core features, talk about its pricing, its pros, and its cons. Hey, I'm Dan Lehman from softwarefinds.com. Come on over to our website and check out for yourself the comparisons and reviews, all the interactive functionality that we have to help you make the right decision for what software to buy for your business. So I'm here in Dubsado. This is my home dashboard where I can see everything that's going on. It's not the most up-to-date user interface. Certainly there is software that is a little bit more modern in terms of design, but it gets me my key indicators of what I need based on my open invoices, our finances, our current revenue, our invoices, and what's going on in my calendar. Now, typically the flow is going to be leads or prospects that we have, and they probably come from our website or social media and somehow need to fill out a form to be able to get captured inside of the system. So to start that process, let's look at our templates, and under templates, we have our forms. Now, what I like about this in Dubsado is rather than have all these different locations throughout the platform, this contains all of your forms. So this is going to be things like your contracts, your sub-agreements. Maybe you have SOWs that are different from your MSAs if you have specific projects that you're working on. You can have questionnaires, proposals, and then here's where we have our forms for lead capture. We have a decent amount of configuration in terms of what information we want to capture in the forms. We can also apply automations automatically when this is submitted and redirect our clients depending on what we want those next steps to be. In our case, we want to automatically create a project and set that status to new lead when that lead comes in. You can also change the styling of your form, and if you need to, you can even edit the CSS if you want to get really granular. And then when it comes to sharing the form, you can embed this on your existing website, or you can take this link and share it wherever you need to. So as soon as your client actually fills out the form and submits it, then this is where a project will be created automatically. And similar to other platforms like Honeybook, this project really has components of it that are kind of for leads and lead management, and then for the job or project itself. So when it comes in, we can have lead statuses, and maybe we take it kind of top of funnel, and then we have a new lead. We've got a consultation that we want to complete and proposals. This can really be our own statuses that we set. But then eventually when they accept that proposal and they contract, now we could have this be essentially a project or a job that we're working on, each with its own statuses as well. Now, this project area is slightly customizable. It's certainly not as much as other platforms. If I click on customize here, you can see I can set up my own flow of the project statuses, both for what we call funnels, drop funnels here for leads and jobs. Now, that word funnels seems kind of strange. I think of a funnel being the overall funnel, not a single stage or status of it, but that's essentially what they mean here. Down here, we can choose from which columns display in that view. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of configuration here when it comes to fields and how we view them and how they display. We can set how we want it to be sorted, and we can have our own custom fields, but notice there really aren't very many fields to choose from that come out of the box. But what's even worse is that the custom fields really are not that useful in this platform. You can create custom fields on both the project and on the client. You can see I created this estimated project value. If we were to create a new field, the only two types we have to choose from are short answer and date. There are so many other platforms that have these other types of custom fields that only having two to choose from simply doesn't hit the mark. And I want to point this out because here I had estimated project value, which should be a currency type field. And notice that I could put a $ in one or shorten or have commas or whatever. And so in this case, we'd never be able to actually sort by these amounts because there's no data validation going on. It's just treating it like a text field. But let's go ahead and open up one of our projects. We'll open up this website project. And here you can see on the left-hand side, I have all of my information about the project. Again, I've got the values for my custom fields. So if I was on the main screen back here and I wanted to edit this value, no such luck. I can't do that. It has to actually have me come into the project. Then I have to press the pencil icon. Then I can change that value. So it's a lot of extra work if you simply want to be managing your projects in bulk. From here, we have this email inbox where we can communicate with our client. We can click to send them an email. It's going to open up the client's information. If we click down here on this bookmark, we can choose from various email templates to be able to send out to our client. They call these canned emails. You can create your own templates or canned emails. The nice part is that we can tie into different variables or fields that we have to personalize this, which means we don't need to spend as much time typing up our email communications ourselves. But the frustrating part about this is that this is one of the worst email integrations that I've seen from a CRM. Yes, I was able to connect this to my Gmail, and so because of that, I was able to send out emails from here. So I sent an email to the client, and we know the client's email address already, but here's the thing. If they send a reply, then that reply is automatically tracked in here in the context of the message that we sent. So it doesn't have its own area down below to see it. You have to click into the message and then you can see it. Now we do have this unified inbox. So if I click on this, this is where all of my relevant emails come into. It's not associated with a particular project. So in this case, I had my client email me directly. They didn't reply to an existing email that I had sent. They initiated this email. But here's the problem with this. I can see this email, and yes, I can view it in my inbox, but notice that I manually have to select the project in order to associate the email. This is bonkers. I have not seen this on any of the other CRMs that I have reviewed, where we have to manually tell it which project this email should be a part of, because we already know the email of this individual, and it's already associated with the project. I should not have to do this extra work myself. So can we check off the box that there's an email integration? Yes. Does it work very well to actually have all your emails come into your project? No. Does it create leads or contacts for you automatically? Again, no. So if you're looking for a CRM that works really well with your email, this is probably not the right choice for you. Let's check out what else we have here. We've got our invoices. And so we can actually create invoices, have them shown in a portal to our client, have them pay. That's awesome. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I have a form here for a proposal, contract, and an invoice all in one step. It's one of my favorite features about Dubsado. From here, we have appointments. And with appointments, you can manually schedule them yourselves. You can just coordinate that behind the scenes. But of course, the easier thing is going to be if you want to use the scheduling capabilities. So you could create this new scheduling request and book this yourself. But the other thing that you can do is actually set up your own kind of Calendly type equivalent that comes directly within Dubsado. So here you could send this link out to your team, to your clients, to be able to have them book time with you. They can choose the date, the time. This integrates with your calendar. So for example, it's not showing my open times all day. Instead, it only has the times specifically within the parameters I want. And then also double checking to look against my existing calendar to make sure people don't double book me. So they can fill in their information that can book that time slot on your calendar. Workflows are essentially the automation sequences that we can enroll our clients in, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. We've got our tasks, and within tasks, we can create tasks for ourselves or for our team internally. We also have the ability to create task boards. And task boards can then be shared with our clients so that we can work collaboratively with them. Now, by boards, what we mean is essentially like in Monday.com or similar, where you have a Kanban style board to be able to work on. I created one here called collaborative tasks. And in here, I'm able to create my own columns, essentially the different statuses. And then we can create our tasks within here. One thing I don't love in particular is if we click to create a new task, it just looks like text information here. It's not until after we create it and then we click into it again that then we can assign it and add due dates and things of that nature. Another thing here is that we can only assign to internal users, so people on our team. I would think in a system like this that you would want to be able to assign tasks to your clients. Maybe you're asking for copy or collateral. You can't really do that. So you can create the task and you can collaborate on these tasks, but you can actually assign them to your clients. And then finally, we can add notes as well. We have an activity log where we can see the history of what's been happening. We've got notes. We could have call logs too. Now, when we're adding these call logs, this is really just our own notes. We can say we called them and leave a description. It's not actually tying into any kind of telephony functionality. And the nice part is all of these interactions that we have then are visible to our clients in a client portal. You can see here on the side, we've got options for our portal. So I can click this and I can view, send, or deactivate. So initially we have to activate the portal to say this is actually live. We can do that with an automation. We can assign a password. So they have a password for a generic portal, or we can have their own specific dedicated link and they can just sign in with their email address. So here's a look at what the portal looks like. I haven't really done any customization here aside from my logo, which doesn't look great. I should probably get a different color here to show up. And here I'm on my home area. We can see unread emails, incomplete forms, and open invoices. I would like if we could actually click into these to do something. Instead, they're just the metrics themselves. This is going to give me information about that consult that we booked, upcoming appointments, as well as unsigned contracts, incomplete forms that we have. Now we can click into these navigational areas for our projects, and here we can again see that core information. So here, if we take a look at that proposal contract invoice flow, we wouldn't actually call it that. I just named it that so it's easy for us to understand. But here is that feature that I talked about that I really, really love in Dubsado. It's the ability to have one process, really essentially our whole lead to client onboard flow that we can do from proposal to contract to invoice. So before I show you what this looks like on the client side, I went back into our templates and forms, and here I am on this proposal. I'm going to open this up, and just so you can see, very similar to the form editor, this is a really nice UI to be able to add the different elements that we need to our proposal. Now, this is a proposal within the proposal form settings. Then you can see that we've got this option, which I toggled on to say, include the contract, and then we can tell it which contract to use. Do we want to have multiple packages that can be selected? We also have our invoice options here as well. So we can now turn those on and have that single document essentially that guides this whole process. Another setting that I like is that we can define our own payment plans. And these are the ones that came out of the box, but I can come into templates and then go to payment plans. And this is where we can actually define our own payment plans. And here you can say, hey, is this due date relative or fixed? Is it in the future to be determined? How are we going to divide up those payments? And then how do we want to schedule our reminders? So this functionality is pretty advanced. Other systems might have, hey, you can pay in full, or we divide it in 2 payments, or you pay at the end. But to be able to actually set up your own payment plans is pretty powerful. So then back inside our portal from the client view, we can then see the proposal that was constructed. Obviously, we'd have actual images and things of that nature. And then from here, we can go into the contract step where we see all the terms of the contract, and we can digitally sign it so that we'll get a copy of that actually signed by our client. And then we can have the invoice so that they can make that payment. Now, you remember that I talked very briefly about the workflow automations that we have inside of Dubsado. Here's a quick look of essentially this sequence of steps that we can enroll them into. So if I were to put my client through this flow, then we're going to send an email when we have these other actions complete for an inquiry. Then we're going to create a review. Then we're going to send a proposal. Then once we have an invoice paid in full, we're going to send a questionnaire. Then once the questionnaire is completed, we're going to automatically activate the portal. Then we're going to send a welcome and onboarding email. We'll create a to-do, and then finally we'll send another email. Now, there's quite a few configuration settings when it comes to these workflow actions, but this is what makes the system so powerful inside of Dubsado, is because we can essentially create this one orchestrated workflow from when that prospect initially comes in through actual payment at the end. A lot of other systems that have their own automations write really generic automations, and they might be slightly more powerful, but they're not quite as usable. Dubsado has a little bit higher of a learning curve in terms of figuring this out for the first time, but once you do, this can be really powerful in your business. Now let's talk about the other ways that we can extend the system to make it even more powerful. We talked about workflow automations, which are powerful. We also talked about custom fields, which are not very powerful. We don't have very many options. When it comes to actually processing payments, the default option here is Dubsado payments. They're essentially wrapping around Stripe. They charge you what Stripe does for this, so it makes it easy to be able to capture payments within your invoices. Now, there are additional options of Square or PayPal if you prefer to use those. Our integrations, our ability to connect to other business systems is very, very light. We can connect to either QuickBooks or Xero for invoicing, and we can connect to Zapier. Zapier is a platform a lot of people use if they want to connect to an even bigger ecosystem of other applications. So here, if we take a look at Zapier, what events do we have to trigger our automations? When a contract is signed, when a new payment is received, when there's a new project for a job, or as a lead, or a project status is updated. And those are pretty strong triggers. It's not quite as plentiful as I would hope. So for example, if there are other kinds of updates to our project, I'd want that to be able to trigger this automation, and we simply can't. But our actions, on the other hand, are significantly weaker. All we can simply do here is really be able to create a project. There's also this option for API request beta, but given that there's no documentation on any API available, I don't really know if you can do anything with this. And without access to an API, that limits a lot of the functionality that we can do to actually connect to different systems that we're already using within our businesses. So the overall message that I perceive about Dubsado is if you're fine using the Dubsado functionality as is, and yes, you connect in your calendar and your email, and you can use their automations internally. But the second that you want to extend it into something or connect it with more systems, then it's not the strongest. Now, when it comes to mobile, there is a dedicated mobile application that you can download on your phone to actually connect to Dubsado. You can find it in the Play Store or App Store. When you're in here, you're going to see a list of your projects. This is a little bit different than other CRMs, which are more focused on the actual people, the contacts. This is much more project management focused as opposed to a CRM. Ironically, the user interface of the mobile application, I think, looks better than the web application, and that's almost always the opposite for other competitors. I can click into my project, and I am able to update the status of my project, but the weird part to me is that there are other fields that I can't actually update here. So here I have my estimated project value. I click into it. I can't do anything. So I believe the instructions are to go back into the web app and update it there. That seems pretty silly and defeats the purpose of using mobile. But if you need a way to quickly review your projects and get notifications, that's nice to be able to do on mobile. When it comes to reporting, Dubsado isn't very powerful in this area. Yes, they do have a handful of reports out of the box, but there's really very limited customization and you can't create your own reports. So we have things like our chart of accounts if we want to view our income and expenses. We can track the statuses of our invoices. We can see our project breakdown of where projects are coming from. And we've got an overall report to see our income, net profit, expenses, and sales. But again, the only thing custom about these reports is being able to add in your own dates. You're not really building your own widgets or dashboards. So let's take a quick look at how Dubsado kind of compares in the ecosystem. This is the Software Finds website that I was talking about that we run, where we actually evaluate these platforms against each other. So as you can see, we've got these scores broken down by category. The nice thing about Dubsado, you get a lot of value for the money, much higher than a lot of other similar platforms. You're going to find, again, that configurability, hey, how can we actually tailor this to meet the needs of our business, is pretty low. If it works out of the box for you, then great. You've got an awesome platform with high pricing transparency, with a lot of value that's going to work for you. And to help you determine the best platforms for you, the nice part is you can plug this in how you want. You could say, hey, value is really important for me. And that's where you can see that Dubsado starts to rank near the top. The other thing you can do is compare certain characteristics against each other. So you can see if we're going for value and configurability, well, hey, on the value scale, this ranks really high. You can see for how much value we're getting from the platform, but the configurability is really low. Now, if we change this to something else like ease of use, well, this is where Dubsado does pretty well because it's both very valuable. You get a lot of bang for your buck that you're spending for, and it's relatively easy to use. Not quite as high as some of the other platforms, but it's still doing pretty well. Let's go ahead and talk about Dubsado's pricing of the platform. So there is no actual free plan. There's a free trial. What's kind of cool about the free trial as compared to other platforms is that it lets you use it and have all the functionality, and then it just caps you at 3 clients. So you could technically get started and then pay after that point, but it's not going to limit you to just a week or 2 weeks. You have access to that trial. It's just when you have more clients that you need to upgrade. There's 2 main plans here, Starter and Premier. This keeps it really simple. There's not hidden things that you need to be worried about. There is monthly and annual pricing, as you would expect, which is going to give you that discount if you opt for annual. For our starter plan, we get unlimited projects and clients. We have invoicing and payment plans, form and email templates. For Premier, this is where we get access to scheduling, automated workflows. Now those, I can understand people who might not necessarily need scheduling or automated workflows that you could potentially do without, but public proposals, I would think that everybody needs access to proposals. So it seems kind of goofy to me to offer this plan when really most businesses are going to need Premier in order to be successful. And so we can scroll down to the specific features and you see this again. If you need bookkeeping, if you need that QuickBooks integration, that's going to bump you up. scheduling, automated workflows, but really it's this public proposals one that I think is going to get people, that's going to force you to upgrade. The other thing that's a little bit unique about what they do is that I'm typically used to software saying, hey, here's the price that you pay for X number of users, and this is a per user price. Or not to do per user pricing and just have it be these unlimited packages. When you initially look at the website, you think, oh, this is all I pay. I don't have to worry about the number of users. But it's not until you scroll down further on the page where then they mention the users. So I wish this was a little bit more transparent, which this was up towards the top. So if you do need more people, if you have 4 to 10 users, then it's $25 a month. 11 to 20 is $45 a month that you're paying on top of that. So essentially an extra fee that you're paying on top of the core fee. But because this kind of platform is so geared at freelancers as opposed to big teams, it's understandable that they have, hey, we'll give this to, up to 3 users. You can get the core platform for that. And then we're just going to charge you more because I'm really curious how many teams of 30 plus users are going to actually be using this platform. My guess is that a lot of people are going to migrate to a different platform if you actually have a team that big, because the collaboration features aren't necessarily the strongest compared to other platforms. The other thing that you'll be charged for is if you have multiple brands. So maybe you're a photographer and you have one brand for your weddings and one brand for corporate, then that's an opportunity where you might just pay a little bit more per month to be able to have this across all of your businesses. So overall, I'd say that Dubsado is a great fit if you are a solo freelancer or have a really small team. If you're a creative professional and you need something that can manage those proposals and make a streamlined process that you can operate out of one platform, then this is a great choice for you. It does have a little bit higher of a learning curve, and so if that's something that might intimidate you a little bit, then there's probably other platforms you might want to take a look at. Now, Dubsado is not a good fit for larger organizations with more complex business processes. As you scale, even if you're a creative business, you're going to find that you probably have more in-depth needs for project management or CRM capabilities that might not just be met in this single platform. And then if you're already using a variety of business applications, Dubsado's really not great at connecting to them. So hopefully at the end of this video, you have a pretty good idea if Dubsado is the right fit for you. If you're interested in looking at and comparing other CRMs or other software applications for your business, check out our website at softwarefinds.com.